Welcome to the Sharon Fitzmaurice podcast, where we celebrate the resilience of the human spirit. Thank you again, as always, for subscribing and following me on YouTube, Spotify, and all other podcast platforms, sharing the inspirational stories of my guests. And if you would like to check out my online community members group, Soulful Journeys, we are continuing our mindfulness program with beautiful events and speakers and meditations and all thing mindfulness coming up for the autumn and winter. Check it out on sharonfitzmaurice.mindfulness.com. And now, on to our next guest. So my guest today is Ashleigh Tobin from Wicklow in Ireland, a Tedx and international award-winning speaker, a health and mind coach, and unapologetic advocate for women's well-being. With over 35 years' experience in nursing, coaching, and holistic health, she combines science, soul, and straight-talking insight to help women reclaim their voice, especially during life's hormonal transitions. Ashleigh, you're very welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate having the opportunity to chat with you today. So thank you again.
Oh, I'm delighted. And you have a journey that's rich with so much experience, between nursing, coaching, holistic health. But what inspired you to, take that path into women's well-being, apart from being a beautiful woman?
I, I would love to be able to say it was all one of, a great plan that I set out. Yeah, no, not really. Sometimes I joke that I'm a bit of a slow learner. I sometimes use the hashtag slow learners rock because because there was no great plan. Instead, there was, I suppose, life. Life happened, and I was nursing a long, long time ago, way back in Ireland of the 80s, when things were tricky and very different, and financially, economically, Ireland wasn't in a great place. At the time, I decided I wanted more, and so I left nursing and moved into the pharmaceutical world. And I worked there for 12 years across a variety of different therapeutic areas, including women's health. And I spent 6 years in the mental health arena, which was always a favorite place of mine because I have a phrase that says, when life is happening, it depends on how lovely it is inside our head. It can be a very different experience. So roll on then, my own daughter was born. I was on the senior leadership team in one of the big pharma companies here. And life was then, just like it is now, sometimes very full throttle. I was very busy commuting, and came to a place that physical illness was what made me pause and reconsider my options. But also that place of what I call overwhelm, where is this what it's all about? Why am I permanently tired? Is there no time for what really matters? So that cluster of things that happened at that time meant that I made a decision to step back from the corporate world and begin to work for myself, where I could, in some ways, be more available, not just for my family, but also for myself. And that opened up a whole new world of learning around women's health. And of course, then, because the universe, I am convinced, has the same sort of humor that I do, I myself experienced lots of transitions, that what you want, we'll call them, around the hormonal health arena. Secondary infertility, multiple miscarriages, and then what became an early menopause. And that was 20 years ago, at a time when the only reference to menopause would have been, I think I'm going through the change. When I myself went to the doctor with the symptoms of what I knew as a nurse to be menopause, I was too young to be in menopause. My bloods were normal, and really they didn't know what to do with me as such. And so it began a journey of fighting tooth and nail. It wasn't lovely. It wasn't. It wasn't all zen and calm. Of figuring out how to thrive at that time, how to manage symptoms, how to feel like I was okay and that I wasn't going stir crazy, and also that it wasn't over. Life wasn't over at that stage. So I fell into what has become a passionate love affair for me with, I suppose, caring for the human body.
Mm.
We're great as humans, we think we keep going, we keep going, we keep going. And often we neglect the only place we have to live, as Jim Rohn would put it, our lovely body.
Yeah.
And so that's been my world in terms of the work I do. And because I love learning and I'm curious about why people do what they do, even if they're saying they want to do something else, I did further training in the area of NLP, satir coaching and mentoring, mindfulness. Any tool that I thought might help, I learned it because I like learning.
I love that, Ashleigh. And again, as I said, you are someone that I could really connect with because first, I always say I have to learn it for myself. How is it going to help me so that I can share authentically, with my clients or anyone I speak to? Well, this is how it has helped me, so you're not just learning something you've never practiced, or it hasn't
Yes.
maybe helped you in your own life experience. And I think that's of huge benefit to people when they say, oh, you struggled with that as well, and then this helped you. So as I said, yeah, it's like having a toolkit, isn't it, for yourself, that you are able to dive in every so often and take out what you need in that moment for whatever you're going through. Now, one of the things, because I loved your Tedx talk, how menopause will change your life. I loved it. You have a great sense of humor and realism about you, which I really think is great. And you speak kind of so powerfully about women, and the silent struggles that we face, especially during hormonal transitions. And like you spoke about there, going to the doctor, being only in your 40s, and they're saying you're too young. I have heard numerous women, even still, being told the same thing. Is it that, and I'm going to ask, I suppose, a little bit of a question that maybe a lot of doctors might say, well, that's not right. But is it that they're not trained in menopause or supporting women that are going through menopausal changes because it's 2025 now, and only a few months ago a friend of mine she was in her 44th year, and she was told she was too young, even though she was having all the experiences of perimenopause, with mood swings, with the hot sweats, with the lack of sleep, feeling anxious, the brain fog, and she was still told she was too young.
So the landscape in Ireland in particular has changed dramatically since 20 years ago when I was experiencing an early menopause. And to be fair to the GPs who have a very tricky job because you're expected to do a lot in a very short period of time. I'm going to say that a huge amount of them now are much more informed and are trained and more up to date with, I suppose, what is current thinking. And current is the important word because, of course, this is an evolving landscape.
Mm.
I attended the Menopause Society of Ireland annual conference last year. And I know that when it happens again this year, there will be new changes, new recommendations, new information for medics, nurses, and doctors, and other health personnel. So it is changing all the time. There are some great support systems out there for GPs, so they have access to more information. But I'm going to say another piece that is part of this is that many of the symptoms, particularly of perimenopause, if we leave even the hot flushes or night sweats out of it, the low energy, the changing mood, the significant PMS, the disturbed sleep, brain fog, low energy and feeling as though they've lost their mojo, as I call it, those symptoms are potentially perimenopause, but they can equally be so many other health conditions as well. So I will sometimes have a woman sitting opposite me and she'll explain symptoms and we'll ask about bloods. Because, for example, if you have heavy periods, which with fibroids, you may have some heavy periods and flooding, you can have a low hemoglobin. That can leave you wiped, feeling lightheaded, palpitations. You feel as though you've no energy. It's hard to think straight. Equally, if you have an underactive thyroid, it will feel as though you've been run over by a bus every morning, no matter what time you're going to bed. And there's very little going to help or modulate that other than perhaps a prescription for L-troxin. So sometimes the symptoms can be quite nebulous and varied. And unless somebody has, oh, what age and stage is this person at in front of me, it may not be as obvious to join the dots. One of the, I'm doing an event later today, and one of the handouts that I'll give are the symptoms of menopause. And there are so many of them. Thankfully, we don't get them all, but there are almost 40 of them. But on the reverse side of that, I also ask people to take a look at all of those things I mentioned for the simple reason it's a tool to bring to the doctor to be able to say, okay, it may not be perimenopause, but actually this is what's happening for me at the moment. Are there some bloods we should do or some other tests, or is it possible that it's menopause? 10 minutes isn't a lot of time for the doctors to summarize a lot. And, you know, I've been the person who's gone in and then burst into tears in front of the doctor because we're so overwhelmed, and perhaps not give as much information as is useful at the time. So, yeah, before a woman goes to the doctor, I always say take 10 minutes, even in the car outside. Sleep, energy, mood, cycle, any medications you're taking, even at those, because to be able to give that information makes it easier for us to be heard. And of course, some GPs are so much better at hearing than others.
Yes, absolutely, Ashley. And I think it's also for women to find their voice, and you talk about reclaiming their voice. And it's something that I have found I have done over the years, and being able to speak up for myself and to ask further questions. But I know there's many women still out there and they're still going, oh, but I don't want to say that and it's too embarrassing and I don't want to be talking about this. But if it's affecting your life in a negative way and it's stopping you from living the day-to-day basic things that you want to do, but you're overwhelmed, exhausted, your sleep is affected, your relationships are affected, and you're putting it all down on yourself, which women do, and they go, sure didn't me great grandmothers and everyone before me get through this? Why am I complaining? And I said, because now there is more awareness and more knowledge out there, more information and more support. And if you don't ask for that support, you're not going to receive it. So again, when I hear you talking about reclaiming your voice, I think it's knowing and understanding, and that's where the awareness comes in now, Ashley. I think in this time, and particularly for me and anybody that I work with, is saying getting to know yourself, getting to know how your body responds and reacts to different things, how it's feeling on a day to day, what foods feel better than the foods that sometimes feel you bloated and sluggish, and, being more aware of those things and not just fobbing it off. And as you get older, it's understanding what your body needs, but what you need. You know, when I'm working with a client, I'd often say after the session, I'd say, how does your body feel? And they'd say, oh, my body feels like this. And I'd say, and how do you feel? I just told you. And I said, no, you just told me how your body feels, but how do you feel? And they've never thought of the difference, which is to me amazing. And again, that awareness, it kind of like a light bulb goes off, doesn't it? Because much of the way that we feel and think about ourselves does affect our physical well-being.
Very much so. And when we are 20, we have a different body, but also a different sense of self compared with when we are 40 or 50, or as I am 60 now. And it's useful for us to just, I call it update my preferences. On those websites, they
Mm.
want you to update your preferences. I go, I'd like to update my preferences. Actually, what would I like? How do I need 6 hours sleep, or is it 8 hours sleep? Do I like,
Mm.
too many people around, or actually do I need solitude?
Mm.
Does I love white bread, that phrase,
Ah,
but actually does it love you? And and it doesn't mean you have to have things perfect, but actually it's about knowing what's a good fit for you,
mm.
because there isn't a queue of people lining up to tell any of us, actually, you know what, you really should sit down and make a note of how you're doing. That's all, that's on us.
Mm.
And when we do it, I always say, I like everyone else better when I do that.
I love that. I love it, yes. And I think it is about, and I suppose if we look back in history, women, they had, and I'm going to say harder lives because we have so much modern, equipment and everything in our homes now. But things are faster and everyone is busier. Whereas, I think about my mother often talking about when they used to sit around the fire and tell the stories and share, what was going on in life. And that was their counseling, I suppose, and support network, and the neighbors that visit each other. And that has kind of stopped a lot because women are as busy now with being mothers or grandmothers and also working and doing all of these beautiful hobbies they have. But sometimes I feel like we're trying to fill all the spaces with things and doing. And one of the things, I'm 54 now, and one of the things I loved when I reached 50 was that I felt like I had the right in my life. I have got that far. I've survived all the traumatic things. I have healed. I'm doing what I love. And it is my right now to step back and do what I choose to do on a daily basis. And that I didn't owe anybody anything. And society could say I should be doing this and I should be doing everything. And that I should look younger and I should be fitter and I should fit into those tight jeans and I should be doing all of this, whatever. And I thought, we've done that all our lives. Now it's time to look to yourself, just as you said, and what is it that I like? What would I like to do with my life? What is it I want to share with the world? What's my message? And that I have seen that again with women like you and other women that are so powerful in sharing their stories and sharing their voices. And then I'm cheering them on and going, yes, that's it. Absolutely. Yes. And you said you're celebrating your 60th birthday and you look absolutely amazing. But that's again because you're doing what you love. You've gone through all of the stuff. You're talking about it. You're sharing it to support others. But if you could look back to when you were that 40-year-old woman, as you said, sitting in the doctor's office, being told you were too young, what did she feel like in that moment? Was anyone listening to her? Did she matter?
In the TEDx talk, I mentioned the word I used. I called them the lonely years,
Mm.
because it is inside the confines of our own skull, can be a lonely place or a magnificent place. And sometimes very little changes on the outside, and it's
Mm.
a different experience on the inside. It was so lonely to feel that somehow there must be something wrong, because they were telling me, they being the doctors that I encountered, that my bloods were normal. So, they didn't really know what I was talking about. And yet it was my lived experience. I
Mm.
have that word now, which I didn't have back then, that actually this was how bad, and we use that word, I felt, how exhausted, how wiped. So there was a frustration and a loneliness. And I think sometimes that ties into that weariness that comes when we are not heard. Because, oh, sure, look, it doesn't matter. Yeah, grand, whatever. Because
Mm.
that's what happens. We get so weary, and with weariness can come a loss of hope.
Mm.
I call hope my superpower. It's the thing that gets me back up off my knees to reclaim my birthright
Mm.
of being alive. Um, but hope isn't always there, and sometimes we're too busy for hope. But for me, one of the most important things about the TEDx talk was that I wanted to share that story about perimenopause and menopause, that it is a time that we are in some ways naturally being called to step back a little and take stock. And the phrase I use for it is to decide who we're becoming for the second half of life. Uh, because up until then, regardless of whether you are a parent or not, very often the first half of that life will have been focused outwards on
Mm.
taking care of others and looking after and making sure that others are okay, or accommodating is the word that I
Mm.
use. And and that phase in menopause when we can tap into that often unspoken about stage of enchantress or
Mm.
warrior. And they're two sides of the same coin. It's about having more self compassion, more fun, more decadence to be able to do whatever we want,
Mm.
but also warrior energy to be able to say, no, actually, that's not okay. Or I'm claiming this for me.
Mm.
Uh, we become those beautiful, wonderful, unreasonable women that I adore because we step into our own power at that stage. And
Yeah.
that's the, I'm going to call it spiritual or soulful
Mm.
part of perimenopause and menopause that doesn't often get a lot of airtime, but
Mm.
hugely important once the physical symptoms are being managed.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, because for me, this whole experience in our life is a soulful journey. It's like I'm connected into, again, I didn't always or wasn't always aware of the power within myself because society tells us we should be this, this, and this, and do all of that and keep your voice down and don't say it out loud and don't be saying that, don't be going against things. And there was always a bit of a rebel in me, when I had the courage to speak out and say, no, I don't actually agree with that, and I don't believe that's the way it, should happen. And now, in particular, and especially because I'm podcasting, it's one of the reasons, like you said, it's reclaiming my voice, but allowing other people to reclaim their voice through some of the most amazing, extraordinary stories, what they've encountered, their lived experience, what they've learned along the way. And for me, it was listening to other people who had lived experiences and how they managed and what helped them that opened up my awareness even more. So I always say my greatest gift is listening, because in the listening, I'm always learning from somebody else. And when I was listening to and watching your TEDx talk, Ashleigh, which I really loved, there was so much, I wrote loads of things down because it spoke to me on so many levels. If I had watched that when I was 30, it wouldn't have meant anything to me in particular. But what I loved is you said there was, or what there was known as, three stages of womanhood: maiden, mother, and crone. And I thought, excuse my language, feck off with your crone. That makes it sound like that old haggard old woman in the field with a stick. And I love that you said that, the creative enchantress. And I actually felt my heart and my chest rising out a bit and my head a bit higher and going, that's exactly the warrior woman, exactly what you said, that we're stepping into our power and owning who we are in this lifetime. And the cycle breaker, that was the biggest one for me. I thought, now as women, we have this opportunity to reclaim our voices and to help others do the same. So just that itself, Ashleigh, was so powerful. But I loved all of the things like, what does it mean to be a woman in her 40s and 50s and even 60s now for you? How has that changed for you in reclaiming your voice, in now going out and working with organizations and different groups. If you look back to 40-year-old self that was in the doctor's office crying, to the 60-year-old woman who's on the back of her husband's motorbike, and woohoo into the world. What was the biggest thing for you between those years of 40 and 60 now?
I would say for me, tapping into Enchantress was very important. So I see them, Enchantress and Warrior, as two sides of the same coin. Um, I had lots of discipline. I had lots of warrior energy. I could keep going. I could churn the stuff out. I could make things happen. So that aspect of me was well able to deliver for others. Where I needed to have some more access to or tap into was Enchantress for me is about self compassion.
Mm.
It's about that, what do we do now sort of energy. Like, if we were to just go mad, what might we do? So it has a slightly mischievous,
Mm.
magical
Mm.
energy. And sometimes, in my experience, what I had done is put that away in order to be a great service provider. So for me, the one thing that I'd say that has changed most is that I access that enchantress energy more,
Mm.
which sounds a bit, listen to your one. But all I mean is that I'm changing the rules inside my own head
Mm.
to suit me more. I have much kinder internal dialogue than I did when I was right up until age 40.
Mm.
So I'm enjoying getting older because I am being my own best friend.
Mm.
Of course, I mess up, I fall down, I all of those things as a human. And there's oodles of compassion, and I always do this because I go,
Mm.
oh, isn't it great? We're still alive.
Yeah,
Let's keep going. That's really good. I really enjoy that. And so for
absolutely.
me, that's been the most significant change that
Mm.
I needed to tap in. For others, it may be something else, but it is what's given me most freedom
Mm.
to cast off. I'm going to use heavy words here, the chains, the oppression
Mm.
from growing up in Ireland back
Mm.
then. Um, and of course, we realized that there's no rules police inside my own head. I get to make up the rules
Mm.
to be a match for what I want my life to be and what's important to me.
Mm.
I mean, there's no point because this is what has formed who I am now.
Yeah.
But oh, if more of us could understand that. Whew.
Yeah. Well, I think and feel in particular with you and your TEDx talk and, sharing on podcasts and sharing on social media, that again, it starts coming up in people's feed, and it comes up again in their awareness because they're starting to question. I see a lot of, people that I work with, women in particular, and men also, and they're questioning, their life. They're questioning their values and beliefs and that programming and conditioning and saying, do I actually believe that anymore? Is that one of my values? Because your values change, don't they? I'd say with every 10 years, our values change. And I would constantly say to myself and my clients, I never ask my clients to do anything I don't do. I'd say, it's lovely to reflect even 6 months into the year. What was that vision you had for that year ahead for yourself? Did you do the things that you wanted to do in work or in your personal life? And they go, no, I didn't get. Why did you not give yourself that opportunity to do that? Why did you not allow yourself that space and time? And again, the old programming comes in because I had to do this for such and such, and I had to do all of these things. So you say, but that's okay, you're aware of it now. So for the next 6 months, how can you actually schedule in those spontaneous things that you want to do? Because it's breaking, isn't it? That cycle and pattern of going back to the old. Because there is a fear, isn't there, Ashley, with people as we spoke about before we came on the podcast, there is a fear sometimes of people and aging and getting older, Whereas both of us, I think, see it as a freedom and a doorway into exploring who we are now and what we love and what we'd like to do. But there are people afraid of that because they've been the mother or the hard worker or the wife, and family circumstances may have changed, children leaving, partners dying, they have responsibility with aging parents. They don't feel as vibrant as they used to, or they don't look it. So they put themselves down quite a lot and they hide in the background. And if only, I'd like you, I would love to just catch their hands and slowly and gently bring them out into the world and say, let's do one fun thing that you love doing and see how you feel after that. Just one little fun thing.
And that's it, because very often when those massive life changes or transitions happen, or we're facing into what I've heard is called a roundy birthday, is that sometimes we we've forgotten. I call them the things that make our hearts sing. We've
Mm,
forgotten what it is we like. We have no idea, perhaps,
mm,
what we like or what we enjoy or what is not. And just starting with
mm,
just one thing, whether it's to finish a cup of tea when normally you'd take it on the hoof,
mm,
whether it's to cancel a plan because actually you're too tired and you're going to have a bath instead,
mm,
whether it's to notice nature, which of course is a beautiful, like it doesn't really matter what it is, but it's about starting to do one thing and then noticing what that feels like to
mm,
be alive. Um, aging is a funny thing, I suppose, because of my nursing background, and I worked in care of the elderly for a long time. Getting older can be trickier.
mm,
There's no doubt we have, don't you love that phrase, wear and tear on our body? It's just wear and tear. Oh, really? That's not what it feels like. We have wear and tear, and sometimes our health circumstances mean that we have been impacted significantly by health issues that have happened,
mm,
and and there's no, this isn't about pretending those things aren't real, or that perhaps, you know, it's going to be exactly the same as when we were in our 20s.
mm,
That's not what I'm talking about, but it is about saying, well, what might be possible? What would be just amazing if it could happen? And I have this exercise I do with myself on every birthday. I ask myself to pick 5 or 6 words that I would use to describe, that I would love to have used to describe me and my body a year from now. And then I check what were the words that I said the previous year and whether or not I'm still aligned. And it's a very simple exercise because for example, I remember when I was 50, I remember saying, gosh, I'd love to be stronger because I'd felt I was getting frailer. And I use that
mm,
word deliberately. I wanted to be flexible. I wanted to have more creativity. So I wanted to be creative. But it's when we just ask ourselves, what words would you like to describe you
mm,
this time next year? And sometimes we're far away from those words. But
mm,
actually, every single day, if we do one teeny tiny little thing, lift a weight, go to Pilates, start running if faster is the one that you want to be, try and touch your toes if flexible is the word. Get curious, check out different things, because curious is one of the words
mm,
that I like to use. It's a simple way of beginning to look at aging differently.
mm,
You and I probably both know people who are significantly older than us that are a joy to be around and that
mm,
we learn from every moment we spend in their time.
mm.
It seems pretty good aging to me.
Yes. And I love even, the fact. For me, again, I always say it's a privilege to be alive every day. And that doesn't mean that life is perfect all the time and everything flows, but it's still to wake up and to be able to move, to put my feet on the floor, to be able to see and to hear and to speak. And I never take any of that for granted. But I also see the resistance in others, about getting older and again, that fear. And I said, it's like anything. If you look back to your 20s and 30s, that fear of the new job or the fear of not having a relationship or will the relationship last or the fear of going to that country for the first time, it's unknown to you until you actually step into it. And for me, aging is about, of course, I would never know, like you would never know what it's going to be like in my 40s, 50s, and moving in 6 years' time to my 60s. I've no idea, but I'm not afraid of it because I'm starting to value the days, the moments right now. So instead of giving all of that energy to the fear of what it might be like as I get older, just like you, I'm saying, I'm going to take steps today for myself. And you made me smile when you said, I'd like to be more flexible. I remember watching this video. He was, I think, a Canadian doctor, and he said that a lot of people, actually older people, die from falls because they lose their confidence, they won't get up off the chair, they won't go and do anything new. So he was saying if you can squat down every day, if you can do that. Well, I'll tell you what, Sharon Fitzmaurice was every day then she'd be walking around next thing she said, I'll squat down, I'll go up, and I'd be roaring laughing at myself, Ashley, because I go, I can still do it. But if I wasn't made aware of that, maybe I would never have started. So again, it's like saying, I love that you said that, what way would I like to be a year from now? And maybe it'll start those internal wheels going, and you're going, I'm not quite happy where I am. I'm afraid of getting older, but what can I do to help myself to lessen the fear and bring in some of that fun and joy? Because it is fun and joy to be able to move, to be able to do things you want to do. And if you're fearing, oh, I don't want to get old and I don't want to be in a nursing home, but you're doing nothing, you're just resisting the joy you could have in your life. So I see you embracing it. I see you embracing it in your personal life, but also in your professional life because you have that sense of humor, that we can have fun along the way. We can talk, about really serious things and still kind of have a skit at ourselves because we've all been the martyr, haven't we?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, I think I took a degree in it stage.
I love that because even you said, and you were talking about the lonely years, and I love the tropical moments that your friend said to you in the Tedx talk, and the martyr mode and the mean girl mode. That so many people, that's why I asked the listeners, I'll put the links up. Please go and listen to Ashleigh's Tedx talk because it is just, everybody will resonate with it. And as I was listening to it, I was like, oh my God, that martyr mode. Yes. And it was nearly like, why can't you see everything I'm going through? And, why isn't anybody noticing it? Because I wasn't saying it that I needed support or that I was struggling. And there again is our voice, Ashley, isn't it?
Mhm.
What do you need support with? What do you need help with? You know, if you can't get it from that circle of people around you, who outside of that can support you?
Yeah, and remember, this is where the physical body is intimately involved in this because the physical symptoms of perimenopause or menopause can be so significant that it leaves you with very low reserves, very low energy, very low ability to be able to step back and check what do I need. So it's easy for us to tip into that martyr mode, that place where we wish someone would come and rescue us, and then we're really cross at them when they don't. And they're oblivious, of course, to it all, you know. And and that's why, you know, quite a number of people said to me, "Oh, God, it was very brave to be saying that you were thinking those things." Sure, loads of us think those things. I know I'm not the only one. I happen to know that. And I just hope that if somebody is in their early 40s in particular, before these things are happening to them, that are aware of this, oh, this is a possibility that this might occur for me, if I got tired or overwhelmed, or if I stopped looking after the body that I'm moving around in, this is a possibility. And often, when we know a little bit of information, as you say, have some awareness about it, it
Mm,
means we can catch ourselves out in the nicest possible way and go, oh yeah, I'm doing that thing.
mm.
And maybe it may be more useful to do another thing.
Yes. And the other important thing that you said, that's why I said you echo so many things that I say to myself and others, is being your own best friend. And would you speak to your best friend the way you speak to yourself? Would you put your best friend down the way you put yourself down? And to be more compassionate to yourself, especially as we do, come into those changes within our lives, whether they are hormonal transitions or they're life transitions, that we offer ourselves that kindness and compassion that we offer to everybody else. You know, we're the ones that wake up and look at ourselves in the morning every single day. And I say, I work with mental health clients, and I'd say to them, who's the first person you greet in the morning? And some of them don't have anybody to greet them. So I said, you always greet yourself with a smile. You always say good morning to you, that you have acknowledged who you are, even if you feel invisible to everybody else in the world. You see you. You acknowledge you. And I have said that to people across the board, and some feel really strange doing it. But they said now they're starting to smile at themselves in the morning, even with the wrinkly eyes, even with the hair standing in the head, and they don't feel like they're fully awake, but they're starting to smile at themselves. And if we can do that and reflect it back to ourselves, isn't that a beautiful start, Ashley, at the start of the day?
Without a doubt. And the reality is, whether we are looking forward to getting older and being on the planet
Mm.
for longer, or it's something we're fearful of, either way, it's happening. And
Absolutely.
we're here, it having the experience of it happening.
Mm.
So that's what makes it, when we can be our friend along that journey,
Mm.
it makes it somewhat easier to yeah, well, firstly to like ourselves, and then, as I say, like everyone else more then.
Yeah. And it shows when you like yourself, doesn't it? It shows when, and it's not talking about perfection, the way you look or anything, but when you actually like who you are as a person inside, other people can feel and sense that from you. And you don't have to be doing everything you want to do right now, but it is, as you said, that one, I always call it one step at a time, taking that little step towards one thing that you feel like, God, you know what, I did that for myself today. It wasn't about anybody else, it was just about me. And then you actually smile a bit more to yourself, and then you're seen smiling a bit more to others. And we want to connect them with others, and we want to share those experiences, don't we? Because a lot of women, they isolate themselves during the menopause. And again, if I go back to when mine started and I wasn't even aware about perimenopause, nothing. And I remember my mother went through the menopause at a very young age. So that was my only marker. And all I remember is her saying she was on holidays at a friend's wedding in New York and she had to stick her head in the fridge because she was so hot.
So for
And her feet always had to be out of the bed, all of those things. And I started kind of feeling those, they're the only things I could remember.
hmm
And I started feeling those things. And I had suffered with anxiety in the past. So I could feel that. I'm very aware because I'd done a lot of work on it. So I could feel the anxiousness within me. But of course, I would have conversations and tools to help me now. So I didn't actually experience the perimenopause or menopause the way many other women did because I had a toolkit already and I was able to manage it. I didn't have to go on a patch either, which again, my friends can't believe, but I was really listening to my body and I was really asking it what it needed in those moments. And there, of course, there was brain fog. I've had children. I had brain fog even when I was pregnant and the lack of sleep. So all of them were familiar in different ways. But again, it was coming back just to listening to what I needed in that moment, what my body needed, and how I could help it in that day. So I can't say I floated through it, that would be a lie, but it wasn't as hard as I see other people struggling through it. And my heart goes out to them because they may not have the same tools. Because one of the things you said is we need more than a patch to thrive in menopause. What did you mean by that?
The availability of HRT has transformed so many women's lives. It is a valuable medicine, a valuable tool that can give relief of symptoms, can be very valuable, particularly in early menopause for bone health, for all of things. So acknowledging that all of that value that's available in a patch. However, we have a physical body that cannot be ignored all the time. I have I have this picture. I imagine the universe is a woman with a good sense of humor, and she goes, "Well, I let her away with just ignoring her body and just being a service provider for so long, and then when she gets to a certain age, I'm just going to dial it up until she can't really ignore it anymore." And there's a place where when we when we aren't having enough sleep, when we are at max bandwidth all the time, as we talked about earlier, just being so busy with so many things, when we are running full throttle with work and then coming home and running full throttle with family stuff, when all of that is happening, um, we're essentially treating ourselves like robots, as though we're a machine. And so while a patch can help replace the estrogen, and if you're taking progesterone, that can work beautifully alongside it, and there may even need to be the addition of testosterone for some women. That's simply focused at your endocrine system, your hormonal system. There is a whole body that needs rest, energy from the people and the connections that you surround yourself with. The exercise, we're designed to move as humans. The fluids we take, whether or not we're using alcohol or not, there may be supplements that are useful. The things that just are no longer a fit for you. So although I love public speaking, I'm quite introverted. So I'm very, very diligent with the amount of peopling I do.
Yeah.
Because it's tiring for me. And rather than push through, I know actually it's not useful for me to push. So regardless, for me, there was no availability of HRT for me at the time. I haven't used any of those resources. I'm 20 years the other side at this stage. But even if somebody is on HRT, whether they've started it, I'll sometimes get a client come to me and say, but I've been on it a few months and it's helped with X and Y, but I still don't, this is the phrase, feel like myself again. And I'll say, oh, absolutely, it's just one of the tools. And you talked about a toolbox, but the other tools are, you know, am I sleeping enough? Am I eating a decent enough diet? Am I doing things just for the pure pleasure for myself, not service providing? Have I taken time to decide how I'm going to be for the second half of life? All of those things are the other things that we need to thrive in midlife and beyond.
Yeah.
Patch is wonderful. It's just the starting spot.
Yeah. And again, I come back to reevaluating where you are now. That can happen every year on your birthday, or that can be every 6 months, or it can be every 5 years. But that life does change and our bodies change and we are changing. And I think we need to move into the rhythm of what is comfortable and good for us now. Because I always say we're moving with the rhythm of life, if it's actually our life and our life's rhythm, not everybody else's rhythm of life and, the busyness. That to take that step back and to honor yourself and to honor that first half of your life and what you've done, what you've achieved, even if you feel it wasn't big or small or whatever it was, to honor that you've got this far. And now it is your choice to reclaim your voice and to ask yourself, what is it I would really like to do for me going forward? And I think that's a beautiful but very simple question to ask yourself and see what comes up. As you said, that word curious. I'm very curious as well, Ashleigh, and I'm like, I wonder what if.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Ashleigh, you work with individuals and workplaces, obviously offering your talks and wellness sessions. And I love that get to the heart of what so many people are silently struggling with: hormonal imbalances, stress, burnout, overwhelm, brain fog, and low motivation. All of those things I see everywhere. I see it online. I see it with people around me. I see it just if I'm observing, if I sit in a hotel lobby, to have a cup of coffee, I see it walking past me every moment of every day. And I would just love to be able to say to everybody, take a breath, take a pause for a moment and just come back to yourself. Just come back to you for a moment. And even that pause can be hugely beneficial. Ashleigh, it has been an absolute pleasure having this conversation with you today.
Likewise, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and love, I suppose, that you bring out into the world. I suppose the conversations that get people curious in their minds, and if only just on that piece around people being busy and stressed and overwhelmed, that if people can just take that breath.
Mm.
We've been conditioned often that we need to do something else. I have a phrase that it's often that we need to undo.
Yes.
And
You heard that, it's like you said, who are we becoming? But there is a part of unbecoming what we were told to be, which I think is really important. And that's why I think when you strip away all of the labels, all of the expectations, all of the disappointments, and you just come back to you, what is it? Or how are you in this moment? Who are you to yourself? Not to anybody else, but just to yourself. And there is a fear about that. But even in that fear about looking at yourself, there's also that curiosity. There's also that, again, I wonder what it might be like if I. And I always say that just try it even in your head and see what it feels like. Visualize yourself doing that thing that you're very afraid of. What does it feel like in your body? Because your body is going to tell you, oh my God, this is amazing. I love this, you know? So there is excitement as well as nervousness in all of us. And again, it's distinguish which is more powerful. And I like to have the excitement as the powerful one now.
absolutely. So thank you so much for having me on the podcast and for chatting about the things that make my heart sing. I could do
Mm.
so all day.
I know, Ashley, it was just so lovely. And there's so much, as I said, we could have talked about. But again, everybody, please go out and check out Ashleigh Tobin's Tedx talk, How Menopause Will Change Your Life. And you can find Ashleigh on LinkedIn and Instagram. You can check out her link tree, Your Hormone Health. And I will be putting all the links up in the show notes as well. And Ashleigh, it has been amazing. And I know there's many people out here that are going to appreciate this conversation because it's very open and honest. It's straight talking. It's not saying do this, do that. It's just asking you to have a little self-inquiry as to how you are and how your body is. And no matter what stage you are in your life, that it's okay, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank
yeah.
you so much. It's been
Thank you.
wonderful.
And thank you to all of you for listening. And if this conversation has inspired you in any way, please do let us know and share with your friends and family. It may be the conversation they needed to hear today. So until next time, everybody, take care of you.